Hello, good day. This is the Jayman Show. I'm your host, Jaiye Bynoe. You on the Jayman Show, which is on WBCA 102.9 FM, Boston's local community radio station. My guest today is Katherine Prudhomme. Hi, Katherine. Welcome to the show today. Good to see you.
Hi there, how are you?
Doing great. So good to see you. Okay, so I guess my question is, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and I guess what your what your role is in politics?
Okay, my name's Katherine Prudhomme O'Brien, and I'm currently in my third term as a state representative in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. And before that, during that time, I have made news for asking candidates for president difficult questions.
Yeah, because I saw your response to Hillary Clinton. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And why she didn't answer your question.
Yes, I think she did not answer the question because what I was asking her about was probably correct. I had asked about that, and the question I asked was, I asked Al Gore back in 1999 if he believed Juanita Broaddrick, and that's the woman who said she was raped by Bill Clinton.
Hmm.
And when I asked that question of Al Gore, he answered my question as if I was asking about an affair, not as if I was asking about a rape. And I had such, high regard and respect for the office of the vice presidency that I did not um, respond by telling him that I thought he was lying to me, but I felt like he was not being truthful with me. And the way he answered the question, I felt like I was getting the runaround, and like I and other Americans that were asking about it were being treated like they were dumb, and that was frustrating. So for a long time, I would keep asking those sorts of questions, and I just get the runaround. And I didn't ask that many. I only asked Hillary Clinton. I asked her like it was 07 when she was at Daniel Webster College, and I was forcibly removed.
Oh,
And I was really surprised when that happened because I was told that at the event there was a question and answer time. And when I tried to ask the question, I had to raise my voice because they were blaring rock music. And then I was told that I was disruptive because I was raising my voice or something. Just it was crazy. Of course, I didn't get an answer at that time. Another time, I asked Hillary Clinton at a parade if she believed Juanita Broaddrick, and she just did one of these motions with her hands, like it doesn't matter. Who cares about that? Oh, who cares? Thinking, this is a sincere question. I saw the woman on television on Dateline NBC. It was a very well vetted interview, and the moment I watched that show, the journalist at the time was Lisa Myers. She was asking all of the questions that anybody would ask about this, and the answers were very good, and Broderick was very believable, and that's I think been the problem all along, is that Broderick was very believable. I should put a little context on that as well. When I was watching Juanita Broderick, I was spending every Monday night of my life at a rape survivor support group. So when I saw um, Juanita give her interview on Dateline NBC, that was in February of '99, I just turned to my husband and I said, "This woman is telling the truth. I can't believe this.
hmm.
This woman is telling the President of the United States." And I thought that at the time, I was so young and naive, I thought that feminists were going to be up in arms and demand
Hmm.
answers. And that did not happen. I was really surprised when that didn't happen. I got into a fight with someone I worked with the next day. I was teaching him how to run some machine tools at the place where I worked. I was a musical instrument maker, and I ran a little machine shop at the place. And his name was Chris, and he told me that he didn't think it mattered because the woman was not obviously a virgin. She was, a little older, and she had had kids and everything, but and she'd been married, and I remember I got so mad at that comment. I yelled out to the rest of the people in the shop that it's open season on the guy. I said the guy's name. I said it's open season on his mom. Anybody that wants to rape his mom, go ahead, because she's not a virgin. It's okay. And he looked at me like I had 5 heads, because it's a crazy thing to say, and that's definitely the craziest thing I ever said in the workplace. and and I said, you see my point, right? And he's like, okay, all right. So when Al Gore came to my town, Derry, New Hampshire, I went and I asked, well, do you believe the woman who said she was raped by Bill Clinton? What kind of, I asked it like a book discussion group leader, because I was a book discussion group leader at the time. So I asked all these like questions you can't really say yes or no to, because I really wanted to get his opinion on it and his thoughts on it. And I asked, how have you been able to square your Christian beliefs with this situation? How did you discuss this with your son? I mean, I think that if you're working for somebody and they have a very public accusation of rape against them, how would you begin to talk to your children about that, especially if you have a son? These are things, well, actually, even if you have a daughter, it doesn't, I mean, they're both awful situations. So I sat back down and he asked me what television network I had seen the interview on, and that really wasn't important to the question. So I just kind of guessed. I said, CBS, maybe. I kind of, didn't realize Dateline NBC was on NBC at the time. It was just Dateline, and then to me at the time. And then I sat back down. I was so nervous, and he asked me to stand back up so he could look me in the eye and answer me, which I thought was a little threatening. He was so mad at me. I was standing so close to him. The vibe I was getting from him was that he wanted to punch me in the face for asking that question. He was so mad. He was so mad. It was a little scary. I'm looking at the vice president, and he's obviously very mad at me. And then he starts answering the question like I had been asking about a consensual relationship, and I just felt really insulted and kind of surprised. And then other terrible things started to happen to me. Like I was audited not long after that. Just other stuff. It's still hard to talk about. It's just crazy.
I definitely understand how you feel, because rape and incest is wrong, because as a child, I was sexually abused as a child, so I know how these people feel. Because it's something I never said, but I was abused as a child. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
It still haunts me to this day, that happened to me. But that's why I try to speak up, because abuse is never okay, so, especially sexual abuse. It's wrong. So I definitely agree.
Yes, I understand that, and that support group that I was in was really helpful. We even went to the state prison, and we spoke to convicted sex offenders, and we gave our side of the situation to them, and we talked to them about that. And a lot of them were sexually abused also, and they I think that they either grew up thinking it was okay, so that's why they did it. They were just so oblivious to that being wrong that they that's why they offended, or they could have become so enraged because they knew it was wrong and they acted out to hurt others because they were so furious and angry, and they really had to deal with the anger that they had as they were, so when they would tell us, first they told us about what they had been convicted of, and we were all really mad. And then they told us about their whole life story and that they had been abused. And I felt kind of bad for them when they would say that. And then I would instantly start feeling mad again because they had chosen to act out negatively. I was mad at them.
Yeah.
But
That's
one man, he tried to tell his mother that he was getting raped constantly by kids in the neighborhood, older teenagers in the neighborhood, or a teenager in the neighborhood. And the mother said, "I can't help you. I can't do anything about it. Stay out of the woods." And of course, he just, you know, he was in the state prison, so obviously you know what happened to him. But I told him if I had known, I would have done something to help you. And I just keep that same feeling with me you know, ever since then, that if I know about something like that, I'm helping you. And that's why I'm so vocal and why I've done what I've done. And I mean, I think you originally asked me because I was raising my voice when I spoke to Hillary Clinton, because it was in a room where they give you a microphone when they select you to ask a question. So I know how the New Hampshire primary, all the event, like I've gone to so many events for presidential candidates, that I know how they often work. The town hall meetings, the people, they speak, and then they have question time. And when it's question time, they'll look around and look for a person to ask a question of, ostensibly, you know, randomly. Um, and I got the sense that people that were getting their questions that Hillary was choosing were oh, I have to I got a low battery thing, so if there's any problems with my phone, let me know, with the link. Anyway, I was getting the sense that they were pre-selected question askers, but usually you can be a little assertive and you can just jump up when it's question asking time and the candidate is selecting a person. You can jump up and say something like, "I have a question, I have a question," you know, like you're an excited kid in the classroom. "I have a question, I have a question." So I did that. So every time she was looking for somebody to ask a question of, I did that. I jumped up and I said, "Madam Secretary, Madam Secretary." And I started off, so this went on about 4 cycles. And I started off with, "Do you believe Juanita Broderick? She said that she was raped by your husband. Do you believe that she's telling the truth, or do you think she's lying?" Now that's a hard question for her to answer because she doesn't want to say that a, you know, rape survivor person making those claims is lying. And she ignored me and asked them and picked someone else. The moment she picked someone else, I sat back down because I wasn't going to be difficult and make it and be impolite to the person that got chosen, right? Then the next time it was question time. As soon as she said, "Okay, let's take another question," and she starts looking around, I jumped up again and started yelling, "Madam Secretary, Madam Secretary, is it because you believe that she's telling the truth that you will not address this question? You said at the parade in Gorham that you didn't think she was telling the truth, or you didn't, you know, something like that." And and I said, "I think that you won't answer the question because you believe that your husband is a rapist." Now, this was a gymnasium and I had to raise my voice. So was I yelling? I don't know. You can make that argument. I like to say raise my voice. But I went in there knowing exactly what I was going to say, and I wanted to say it. And I wanted to say to the whole world that the reason that she won't address it, because this went on for that went on for 17 years or so, about 16, 17 years, where I was trying to get an answer from somebody. I asked Al Gore about it because he was close to Clinton, and it had happened just a half a year earlier that I'd seen the interview. I asked Hillary Clinton about it at Daniel Webster College. I asked her about it at the Berlin Gorham 4th of July parade in like 2015 or something. And then I saw Hillary Clinton at the VFW in my own town of Derry, and she was talking about veterans issues. I stood outside with a sign that said, "I believe Juanita," and something like that. And then someone I knew in town said, "Oh, there are still seats. Come on in." And I said, "Are you kidding me? You think they want me to come in there?" I don't know. She said, "No, there are seats in the front. Come on, come on." And I said, "All right, fine. I'll go in there." I went in there with my name tag that I had in my pocket that said, you know, I was a member of the House of Representatives. And a man at the door took my name. He said, "Oh, would you like to come in?" I said, "Yeah, I have sure, yeah, I'd like to come in," thinking that they're going to kick me out. And he wrote down my name, and I went in and I listened to her talk. And then afterwards, I asked her about Kathy Shelton too. That's another completely different issue because I had heard about her in that summer. And I was driving down the street, and when I heard it, it made me cry. The Kathy Shelton, Hillary Clinton connection. Kathy Shelton is a rape survivor. There's no question that that woman is a rape survivor. That's not allegedly. There was really a trial. She was in a coma for a long time because of her injuries. She was 12 years old when this happened. And Hillary Clinton was the public defender for the man who raped her. And Hillary Clinton just, I know a lawyer needs to do their best to represent their client, but said some horrible things about this woman. I was deeply offended. Now, my parents divorced when I was a baby. And so that one was personal as well, because Hillary said Kathy Sheldon wanted the attention from the man that raped her, the man who's like much, much older. He just pulled her off her bike she's riding down the street. And she was from a disorganized home with the divorce, so that she wanted attention from older men. Again, the man took her off her bicycle as she's driving down the street. How is she being seductive? Plus, she's only 12 years old. How is she being seductive in any way? And then to say that Kathy Shelton wanted attention. It was just unbelievable. And I'm thinking to myself during the whole campaign with Hillary Clinton, where are the feminists? What is the National Organization for Women? What do they exist for? Do they even exist anymore? And okay, there's other women out there that consider themselves feminists, but they seem to all be on Hillary's side. It's just insane. I was getting so mad. I did go to someone I knew who worked on the Trump campaign. After I was a supporter of Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz was not the last candidate standing. It was Donald Trump. So when that happened, I asked someone who was on the Trump campaign, would you please tell Trump to take this issue forward, because there's a lot of rape survivors and sexual abuse survivors on the right, and I feel like we have zero voice. We have no voice, and this is a serious issue, and it's not being addressed. And the left does not own the issue of being caring to rape victims. Okay, so could he please just address it, talk about it like boldly and publicly, like Republicans should have been doing all along? Could he please do that? It's okay to talk about it publicly, and it's actually not okay to just keep it under the rug to be polite. Because I'm sick of, because being so polite is not helping, and it's not helping us. It's not helping me. It's not helping rape survivors. It's just, I don't speak for each and every rape survivor in the world, but Juanita Broaddrick's interview on in '99 was a very well vetted interview. The woman is not. She's a good, decent, honest, believable person, and I think that could have led to what he did in the debate, because I told the man on the Trump campaign, please have him do something. Talk about Juanita, bring her out, bring her out, bring others up. Then next thing I knew, I don't know, a couple months later, right before the debate, he brings them out. I don't know if that was something he would have thought of otherwise, or if that idea got up to him personally, and that's why he did it. I don't know, but I did ask for that, and good. I was glad. I was very happy about that. I've been talking a lot, so if you have a question, just let me know.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear your story because because I for people like me who've been raped, rape survivors like myself, and everyone out there, what do you think we can do to maybe change that, to maybe speak up, because this has to stop. So what can we do to get help and to make changes so this doesn't continue?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of things we can do. As a state rep, I've been able to pursue legislation. And last year I got a bill passed that it criminalizes sexual relations between students, high school students, and teachers. Prior to that, there was a loophole in our state that for a year or two before you turned 18 and you were at the age of consent, there wasn't any prohibition on having a sexual relationship with a teacher. I think that's just, an unhealthy situation all around. So that was one way we did it. What I do and what I've been able to do for a number of years now, and I haven't always been able to do this. This was a long journey. I talk about it very openly. I had this idea when I was in that rape survivor support group. As we talked about everything that we were going through, I thought I'm going to treat it like if my car was stolen or my purse was stolen. I mean, of course, those are not comparable crimes, right? But if those things had happened to me, it wouldn't be as hard to talk about. I could just say my car was stolen, which did happen to me a long time ago. It was in Boston, but well, actually, it was in Malden. It was in Malden. It was just outside of Boston. And anyway, I can talk about that the same way, just with the same, like, why don't I just talk about it with the same amount of emotion? Because it's not about me. It's about that person having a major problem, and I should not be taking it so personally. And I know that it's general personal things, so it's hard. And it was really hard to just feel safe in the world afterwards for many, many years. And I had all kinds of difficulty with getting through my day, which is why I was in that support group. I was afraid to leave my house. I couldn't function. I was having a hard time functioning. And I lived in a nice place, and I got married, and I was safe, and I had a baby. So I was both like safe enough to have like to be afraid. I know that sounds weird, but I felt safe enough to find. I was always in protection mode up until I got married. I was always protecting myself. I was always like barricading doors and locking doors and just being scared all the time. And I think that looking at crime statistics was a lot of help for me as well. Like, it's so rare, even though these terrible things happen to me, and so many of these terrible things happen to me. I was trying to think about it logically, and crime statistics were showing me that what happened to me is pretty rare. And I read books, like I read The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, and that was pretty helpful because I learned a lot of street smart things that I can do to keep myself safer, of which I was doing them anyway. But to have him, write it down and put it right there in print was really helpful. He grew up in a violent household where his mom was beaten by his stepfather or his father. And so he was constantly in this protection mode, but also he was constantly trying to read people's signals to find out when they were getting likely to become violent. And that was like the story of my childhood. I already knew that. So it was really nice to read that I had a lot of insight and I was, doing well, doing better than I realized. And another thing that I'll tell you what, the situation with Al Gore helped a lot too, because I got all this national attention afterwards, and I didn't get assassinated or something. All these things that I thought were these crazy thoughts. I was always feeling in danger, so I felt much better. I mean, I know that sounds a little paranoid, but I just got a lot of weird mail, and I got a lot of weird stuff happen. So just I was on edge on that, but I'm fine. So
Well,
that's good.
well, I'm glad you're fine, Ken. I'm definitely glad you spoke out and told me the story, So, so
I know I've been saying a lot, but there's one really big thing that I didn't tell you yet.
please do. Thank you.
I was so distraught after one of my visits to the state prison, because I met a man who he killed a little boy.
God.
Yeah, so after a sexual assault, and all these men that we were meeting were about to be released. I walked out of there and saying, how is this guy about to be released? What is going on? What is this? This is what got me involved in politics, okay? But before I was able to get to that point, I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of stuff happen to me. I survived a kidnapping attempt when I was about 7 or 8 years old. Some guys, this was in Massachusetts where I grew up. I grew up in North Reading, Massachusetts. And I was alone a lot because my mom didn't have a lot of money, and my mom was working a lot, and we were on our own all the time, and we were just really vulnerable kids, because we're kids that we didn't have a lot of money. We had ugly clothing. The other kids were picking on us. If you saw us like at the bus stop getting up, we were the kids that were probably the least confident looking. We were just the kind of kids that a pedophile would size up and say, this is going to be easy pickings. She's alone a lot. She's walking alone. Her mom's not home a lot. Single parent. She's not very confident. I was also super polite because my mother taught me to be very polite. So these guys were trying to get me in the car, and I kept saying, no, thank you. No, that's okay. No, thank you. No, thanks. That's okay. But the moment I was across the street from the store that I was going to, and they kept asking me to get in their car, I realized this is not about a ride. They're not really trying to give me a ride. So I started screaming and running down the street the other way. And because because doing a U-turn takes time. So that's why I went the other direction, because I had more time. And all of that came flooding back after I met that man. I never forgot it. I just didn't think about it all the time. That all came flooding back. And I had been working so hard, trying to make, my life bearable. And I was feeling like I could not bear living in the world anymore. It was just so hard. And I was so depressed, I couldn't get out of bed for days. It was like I was in bed for 3 days. And I just wanted to just die. I think that a lot of rape survivors can understand where I'm coming from. And trauma survivors, they'll know what I'm talking about. And I had an epiphany that I'm going to just live my life and talk about this honestly. I'm going to talk about it honestly. I'm going to talk about it like, with the kind of emotion that, like I said, if I was a theft victim, because I don't want to live like this anymore. And I don't want that person to, those people to win. And I feel like I was fighting evil. Meeting that guy had, his eyes were, it's the weirdest thing. His eyes were blue, but they were also black. That guy I felt like I was looking like at Satan looking at that man. I'm not an overly religious person. I'm agnostic religiously, but meeting that guy who killed the little boy, I felt like there is evil in the world, and fighting it is very hard. It can destroy you. This is why I think, this is how religion does help people a lot, because you are not alone when you're with your church members, your friends from church, your minister. You get a lot of spiritual help in fighting these fights.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's hard. It's scary and it's hard. Anyway, I was able to write to the parole board. That man never got a parole hearing, and he passed away while in prison, and he was not released. So that was good. The first thing I did, though, is I called the governor at the time, and I tried talking to her. Her aide laughed at me. That's what sent me to bed for 3 days. I was so depressed. I was like, I just did all this emotional work of trying to talk to these guys about to be released from the state prison, because it's better that they hear from us before they leave. And I felt like, boy, that's a dangerous guy, and he's going to get out. And I tried, and I don't know what else to do. And I called the governor's office. And what else can you do? But then I met a state representative. He talked to me about writing to the parole board. It's like, obviously, that's what I should do. I didn't realize. I see now, And I did that, and it was successful. So I was really, really disappointed, very depressed. Then it worked, and I was very relieved. So that's why I wanted to be a state representative. I wanted to keep doing that kind of stuff for people.
And that's wonderful. I think if you keep doing what you're doing, and I'm glad you spoke out, because I still want to speak out too about my, experience of being raped as a child, and hurt and abused, because, because it's definitely wrong, so, so I can understand how people feel, how you feel, because it's wrong, so. Yeah, so
I have to plug my phone in because my device is getting a little low on battery. I can still talk. I just gotta plug it in, okay? I've got to move around the room. Okay.
Okay. So I guess my next question is did you end up getting arrested after the incident of Hillary Clinton? Did you end up getting banned from any more events?
I never tried to go into any more Hillary events after that. I figured that once I got that bold, that I would be on a list, and I wouldn't be allowed in. But I was after like I told you, it was about 4 cycles there of questions. And when I did say what I wanted to say, which was, I said, you won't talk about this because you believe it, because you think your husband's a rapist. That's true. And that's why you won't talk about it. And you pretend to know nothing about it. And I sat back down, and I tell you, all these people around me, there were these women from Moms Demand Action sitting in front of and behind me. And after that, I sat down, they said, if she gets up again, we're going to take her out. What do you mean they take me out? Take me out for coffee? That's a joke. They're going to take me out. I was just surprised that these women didn't care at all. Like, ladies, you have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? You guys need to get a clue. Well, then a man from the Secret Service came over. I was sitting in the middle of a row, and like 5 rows from the front. And the Secret Service man came through the entire row, moved all of these people to get to me. He said, if you keep yelling, we're going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private event, and you'll have to leave. And I said, well, I'm not yelling. I'm raising my voice, and I've said everything I want to say. And I was very disciplined about the whole thing. I knew what I was going to say. I only spoke when a question asker had not been chosen. So I would not be impolite to any question asker, like a regular citizen asking questions. And then I'd already said everything I wanted to say. I knew what I wanted to say, and I said it all. And I sat down, and it would have, I just felt like I have nothing else to say. So this Secret Service man asked me to be quiet, but I'm already quiet, so I have nothing else to say. So I didn't say anything else. I didn't, I'm on, my daughter just came, my daughter looking for me. Yeah. uh, so I had already said everything I wanted to say, so I didn't need to belabor the point. And then I saw some local police officers as I was leaving, and I said, I'm very sorry if I've made your job more difficult this evening. And they just said, oh, and other people came up to me afterwards that were at the event, and they said, we heard you were saying something, but we don't know what you were talking about because we couldn't hear you. I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what I was talking about. So other people that were on like the other side of the hall could not hear me, and they didn't know what I was talking about at all. Hillary Clinton told me that I was rude, and I just thought, you know, there's a sign. I had all these errands that were near her office and everything in Salem, and there was a sign at her headquarters in Salem, the campaign, that said, well-behaved women rarely make history. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I didn't go there to be rude or to be impolite or to be not very well behaved, but I was pretty well behaved because I only spoke, like I said, when she was looking for people to ask questions of. And I had very specific things that I was going to say. And I tried for 16 years to get answers to those questions. And I was given the brush off. I was treated like I was not asking about rape. And I was told that it didn't matter, that Juanita Broaddrick, Hillary Clinton herself told me Juanita Broaddrick didn't matter. She didn't care. It didn't matter. But when did this happen? You know, I think that every case needs to be analyzed. You think about it, you think about the person saying it, you think about everything involved, you know, the logistics of it. Did that really happen? Did the events happen the way the accuser is saying? Why would this accuser make these comments? I was asking all of those questions of Juanita when she was doing the interview on Dateline. I was thinking, why would she say this? I think that it was so hard to get that interview on the air, that if any part of her story didn't line up, and NBC would not have ever aired it. They wouldn't have. They would have, if they had a reason to dismiss her, they would have. So since then, I've watched rape accusations become like a political tool, that accusations that otherwise would not get the light of day because there isn't a lot of things to back them up. They get elevated as if there's no way the woman could be inaccurate about these claims and any manner of the claim. And for political reasons, I think what Juanita was saying, and also Kathleen Willey, Kathy Shelton, all of those women, they were swept under the rug. All of those claims were swept under the rug. And people didn't want to hear about it. But when it came to making accusations against other people, when they weren't very, there wasn't a lot that if you were to try to even try the case, even like if you were to say this happened 2 weeks ago, not, you know, many years ago, there wouldn't be enough information for people to make a judgment on at all. Those got elevated like there's no way the woman could be not telling the truth. So I watched as rape claims got politicized and used as weapons, because, you know, they're powerful. They are powerful weapons. I go through this a lot too, where I bring up serious issues, and that's a big responsibility. You can't just do that and drop stuff. You can't go around lying about things, because that destroys people's lives. You can't go around gossiping. You can't say you think this might be this, like, you know, politics here in New Hampshire, certain people. Like, I hear this constant rumor about a person who's in politics who has a very young spouse, and I don't know when they got together and everything. And people say things like that person's a pedophile. Say, I don't know. Age of consent. I don't know anything about the dating relationship at age of consent. I'm not going to repeat any of that because I have no knowledge of anyone making claims about something illegal happening. So I'm not repeating it, and I don't go around repeating it because when I say things, I want them to be accurate things. I'm not going to say things that I think might be happening. You have to be very accurate. And that's the standard I applied to making my comments about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton helped Bill Clinton hide his rapes. So, what do you do with that? When I was in the support group, the people around would often, minimize it and try to make the women that were saying that they were raped, or sexually abused maybe in the family. The other family members would try to minimize it or make it tell the victims that they were crazy or things like that. But I didn't see anybody like overtly work hard to help hide things. That was kind of a new low for me to have to accept. It was pretty sad.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. So, would you consider running for president of the United States?
You sound like my mom. My mom sometimes comes up with these crazy ideas. I mean, that's not a crazy idea. That's very nice. Thank you. That's a big job. That's a huge job. And I think it's important to just focus on the job that I'm doing now, which is a state rep. And I don't think I've ever heard of anybody like go from state rep to running for president. They they usually do other things in between. And what's beautiful about New Hampshire is you don't need a lot of money to run for state rep because our situation is a little different. We have a state reps, and they're also elected every 2 years. So it's a job that can be done by regular citizens, and that's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's a hard thing sometimes, getting people who can afford to do the job, but that's good. We're not in this for the money, and we don't need a huge amount of money to run. Now, if things were different, like I was in a state where you could make an actual living as a state representative, like Massachusetts, there'd be a lot of pressure to be a lawyer, to it'd be a lot different, to raise a ton of money to run, to have the backing of the party before you made any move whatsoever. You lose a lot of independence that way. So I like what I'm doing now. I just want to keep serving my community. That's all I want to do.
Okay, and so what do you see yourself years from now? Like,
where do I see myself years from now? Oh, looking back on this time now, that it was well spent and that I was brave enough to do difficult things that needed to be done. And that's what I want to do years from now. Just that I've made good use of the time that I have now, and have good relationships with all my love very much, and that they're nearby and they don't all move far away and stuff like that, because that's what happens when your kids grow up, and that's very sad to me because I grew up without a lot of family around, and it was harder, and my husband's family was wonderful and I really love them, and then being close by. My mother-in-law lived with us for 17 years before she passed away. That makes me sad. She passed away in January. I'm still sad. So that's what I want to do, is just be close to family and have good family and all that.
Yeah. I understand. So what do you think we can do to change the world to make the world better in your opinion?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. I think we had a little connection issue.
I was asking, what can we do? What can people can do well to make the world better?
What can we do to the world better?
Oh, yeah, yeah, to make the world better, to change the world, make the world better.
Be okay. Be a good person yourself. Okay, don't compromise on that, and then go out there and be brave. And when you're a person, you haven't compromised yourself, and you're brave, and you stand up for the things that you believe in. Uh, it makes it impossible for people to shut you up easily. So if you're being a good person, you're not insulting people needlessly. You're not spreading rumors. You're not gossiping. You're not doing things for your own ego gratification. And then you try to make the world a better place. You can do all kinds of things. You could run for school board. You could be a library trustee. Any of those things. You could be a leader in a youth group in your area. You could be, do tutoring in your community. All of those things are very important jobs, and they're the backbone of our society. We need good people, um, good, sincere, honest people doing those jobs. And they're also the way that if you were thinking, I would like to be the mayor of Boston one day. Well, a great place for you to start would be run for library trustee. It's okay if you teen, or run for a lot of towns in Massachusetts. You can run for town meeting member. Um, Run for anything like that, because you'll get a lot more confidence, and then maybe you will be able to take on those larger offices in the future if that works for you, and you'll be prepared for it. And when you're frustrated that there's corruption around you, just get yourself in there. Just get yourself in there. Just get to work, because you can. I had a driving teacher who used to tell me, I got so nervous driving on the highway. And I got so nervous saying things like, oh, that guy, what's he going to do? Oh, what's that guy going to do? Oh, are they going to do this? Are they going to? And I all had all these ideas about what people around me do. And he said, just drive your own car. Just focus on driving safely yourself and getting where you need to go. And don't worry about these other distractions and all these things that people do. And also, they just want to get there safely as well. So they're probably not going to do all the crazy things that you're nervous about. But the idea of driving your own car means you're just on your own path, and you're doing your own thing. You've got your goals. You've decided that the person who you want to be before you got there. This is the person I'm going to be. And just keep going, and just keep driving your own car, and don't worry about all the other stuff going on around you. Just go, just show up and be a good person. And that's the best way to change the world. And just keep being prepared for what's next. You're in what you think is a smaller kind of position in your community. That can just do what you're doing. People will be a good person. And that is the world, and make it a better place.
Yeah.
The way I grew up too, like I talked about that a little bit with my mom working so much that she wasn't around a lot, but there was more to that too. Like she had a boyfriend that was really abusive, and my father.
Are you there? Catherine, are you there? Hello, Catherine? Okay, when we're back, so I think I was asking Catherine about James the Road, so and you gave a great response, so I guess my next question is how did the pandemic affect your career, everything being shut down?
How,
How did COVID affect you?
how did the pandemic affect me?
COVID.
Ooh, get some audio from. Oh, how did COVID affect me?
Yeah.
Well, my life at that moment was um, caring for my mother-in-law and helping to care for her. And she was very, very elderly at the time. She's in her mid 90s and living with her. And my sister-in-law was here helping as well. And my mother-in-law has a little area of the house that's attached to my house that she was living in, and my sister-in-law was living in it with her, and my sister-in-law closed it off, and the nursing home that my mother-in-law was getting ready to stop taking patients. So my mother-in-law was here, but we couldn't see her, and I'd say that was the hardest thing that was going on, was that I couldn't see my mother-in-law. I could talk to her through the window a little bit, but with her hearing issues, it didn't, I had to yell through the window. That was the hardest. And then my mother-in-law had some medical issues and passed away in January, just before they were able to accept her at the nursing home. So I was sick to have him, so we needed to have her in the nursing home because we couldn't lift her up. And then that was the biggest effect. My husband worked at home a lot and couldn't do that 100% of the time, though, because of the nature of his work. So he was going in, and things did not change a whole lot for me in that regard, except with my sister-in-law just kind of closing off the house, the part of the mother-in-law was. I was not doing nearly as much for my mother-in-law because I couldn't do all the stuff that I was, because so.
Nice.
And then I started hiking a lot more,
Okay.
like a lot of people, but I was already doing that, but I was just doing it a lot more. I was doing it 4 times a week, but then I was doing it every day, no matter what, just so I could have some positive routine there and walk the dog.
Oh,
I still do that.
I see. Well, that's good. I'm glad, that everything seems working out in your favor. So how did the George Floyd incident affect you? I mean, the George Floyd incident, how did that affect you? I mean, this whole racism thing, I mean,
Oh,
the George Floyd incident.
George Floyd?
Yeah, plus Black Lives Matter. How's that?
Oh,
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
yes, yeah. How I feel about that? Well, that's a big question, isn't it? I have a lot of feelings about that. You probably don't know this, but my stepfather is Black. My late stepfather was Black. He married my mother. My sister and I all moved to Louisiana when I was 12, and then my sister and I moved back to Massachusetts and lived with my father. Remarried a Black man, and I saw that there were problems there. They both worked at the same truck stop, and there were couples there that were married, but they weren't interracial. And as soon as my mother and my stepfather got married, they were both fired, and that did not sound legal to me. And I was only when that happened, I was about 14, and I said to my mom, I'm on the phone because I didn't see her in real life because I was in Massachusetts. I didn't see her too much. I said, Mom, I think that's not right. You should get a lawyer. Well, they decided to start their own business instead. He was a janitor and she was a bookkeeper. So they started a janitorial business, and it kind of did well. Like they got a lot of business, but sometimes the business they were working for didn't pay for whatever reason. They had their own financial issues, or they were irresponsible, and that was a big problem for their business. So the business was struggling, and they lost the house, and my stepfather became homeless. My mother moved up here with my sister. My sister had just had a baby, and she was about 19. So that was about a number of years later, 7 years later, after working on the business and the house getting repossessed. My father was living in his car by himself, and the minister found him and brought him to the hospital, where he died a few days later. And I look back on that whole situation. If he did not lose his job at the place where he had been successful for decades working there, he could have died differently, a lot. He could have had a lot more, many more years, never had his house repossessed, all those, all those things kind of snowballed, made me very sad. So I know racism does exist where I sit there, and I look at every incident on its own, every single incident on its own. Like the Breonna Taylor issue, it was presented at first as if they burst in and it was just these cops burst in and just started shooting. But when more facts came out, there was more complexity to it. There was a lot more complexity to it. And that's often what happens with these cases, is there's more complexity to it. And unfortunately, race is a big one, right? And it keeps the conversation from going to the logical places where you need to. Like if you're a member of a jury and you have to think about these things, you should be able to make a decision based on people really intended to logically in that manner. And when race gets into it, that conversation can be truncated, and I don't like that. I want to be able to keep having the conversation. If race is an issue, then let's address it, but let's not stop talking about important aspects of the case because race is an issue. We recently lost the death penalty in New Hampshire, and the man that was on death row was a Black man, and he had shot a white police officer. And before I knew anything about the race of the individuals, by this time I had gotten politically active. That state representative that I told you helped me keep the child killer in jail, he had become our state senator. And when I heard that the police officer was, he was in the hospital for a little while and then he died. So it was a little while that we were all as a state, we were just worried about the guy, and then he passes away. And the moment he passed away, I called my state senator and I said, I just want to say that I think that the death penalty should be pursued in this case. The guy, the police officer was shot in the back. It's just terrible. Everything's just terrible. And I just want to let you know that as your constituent, that's what I think. And he said, well, and I said, what do you mean, well? What do you mean? I thought this was kind of like this case, everything I've been reading, about what's happened in the newspaper these last few days is, last days, is pretty cut and dry. He was shot in the back. He's, going to a domestic incident, a loud fight in the middle of the night. And he said, well, I said, what is it? This is a race issue? What do you mean, well? Is this because is the man that shot the officer Black? And he says, yes, so race is going to come up, and I don't know if he's going to get I don't know if we can even. Anyway, he did end up getting the death penalty. Well, he got that sentence, but he never got the death penalty because the death penalty was repealed in New Hampshire a year and a half, 2 years ago, by one vote. I didn't think that the race in that case mattered. And I felt the way I did before I even knew what the race of the man was. It didn't matter to me, but the race of the people, you know, it could have been opposite. It could have been a white shooter and a black police officer. I would have been feeling the same way. And now that all that said, that yes, I think there are some cases here in this state where the person is white, and I would say that guy should have gotten the death penalty for that case. So I've had a lot of conversations about this. There was a woman that I met from Mississippi who was on death row, and she was exonerated. And she came to the State House and was talking to us about this because they were trying to get rid of the death penalty. They were successful. And I had to have a tough conversation with her. And I said, if I was in Mississippi, I think I'd want a moratorium on the death penalty. Absolutely. I think the governor of Illinois did that a number of years ago, because she was, first of all, she had to have had terrible representation. This was a case of, she left the apartment when her baby was sleeping, and then her baby died of some either SIDS or something that happens that could have been, had nothing to do with her. That is a possibility, but she gets the death penalty for it. And I'm thinking, in New Hampshire, that wouldn't be the death penalty phase, because nobody would be talking about that, because there's such a high possibility that it was a total accident or natural phenomenon. But they don't want to, you know, assume that the mom did something wrong when quite likely that wrong. So, and she was neglectful, but that's not the same as trying to kill your kid. I said we don't apply it too often in New Hampshire. We have not put anyone to death in this state since 1939. So I'm feeling like we're pretty conservative with it. We don't do it very often, just the worst cases. Yeah, so I mean, I can talk about, I have conversations about it, but with that man that I met in prison, my feeling was, this is not good for crime victims for this man to be here. He had been released once before, had minors in his apartment, serving them alcohol, and then he was put back in jail. They were looking, and I thought to myself, there's no way that someone like me should get caught up in this. And I felt like when I was fighting to keep him in jail, in prison, like I was alone doing that. Not only was I alone, but if I was to actually go to the parole board and say, this man lied to, like, he lied to me about stuff, I asked him direct questions. And then I looked up the case afterwards, and he lied about the age of the boy. He told me the boy was 8, the boy was 6. There's no way you'd forget that in prison because of what you just did. You're only gonna tell me that to minimize it, so I'm not mad at you or something. Like, those 2 years make a huge difference. I'm gonna be mad for killing a little boy and sexually assaulting him. There's no way I'm not gonna be mad about that. And if I was not successful, I speak to the parole board, I'm not successful, and that guy gets out, I speak to the parole board with my name. You can find me, you know? I mean, that's gonna be some really brave stuff to do. I was mad. Like, what? How is this helping? That man should have gotten the death penalty. But, you know, when he was found, it was one of these situations, I think, like you see on these crime shows where the boy might have still been alive, and they would have said, we won't give you the death penalty if you tell us where he is, because he was hit in the head with a farming implement. So he had, you know, a cracked skull, and he was bleeding, and maybe he's still alive. So that might have been why he didn't get the death penalty, because, or it might be that they don't often give the death penalty for killing kids. I know that's unfortunate. Mississippi's different, but yeah. So the George Floyd case, there was a lot of stuff going on with Floyd. I mean, was this a training issue also? Was this training that just wasn't taught over and over again to the police officers so that they could keep it at the front of their mind that you could cause someone to stop breathing using those techniques. Was that with the officer? We couldn't have that conversation, and I don't recall having that conversation in the trial too much. Floyd also had other stuff going on, like he had some drugs in his system that could have caused the cardiac problems and the breathing problems. So on both of those things together could have caused all this. But was the police officer really trying to kill him on camera? I don't know. I don't know. I again, I feel like there are things we can't talk about without being accused of being racist, and then the conversation ends. I'm going through a certain thing in my own community where there was a library event that I didn't think was appropriate for kids, and I was a library trustee, so I started asking questions like, when did the trustees talk about it? Because the trustees would discuss the entire situation and make you feel more comfortable. And it happened to be a drag story time, okay? And the people in the community didn't know about it. The trustees didn't discuss it. The director made the plans for this event all on her own, although it's a controversial event. I know how trustees and directors are supposed to work together as a team in our state. And because of that, not only was I called bigoted, but I was called a Klan member. There was no racial issue there. Everybody involved, the director, the performer, the person who's calling me a Klan member, everybody's white. And I'm called a Klan member. I was so mad. I'm not a Klan member. That's the last thing I would do. After the experience with my stepfather, who was a good person, like, that's the last thing I would do. You know, I met David Duke when I was in Louisiana too. I met him in a Mardi Gras parade. He came right up to me and he gave me his literature. He was running for something like Congress or something. And I read his literature, and I was in a car full of other teenagers. We were like half black, half white. And they're in a convenience store on the way home from the Mardi Gras parade. And I'm reading this literature and I'm thinking, I can't bring this home because my stepfather might be hurt. He might be hurt thinking I'm a David Duke supporter, and it looks like this guy has some ideas that might be hurtful. And I thought, my stepfather's not going to say anything. He's probably just going to be hurt. I couldn't do it. So I went out and I got out of the car and I threw it away because I didn't want to hurt my stepfather. That is not the kind of thing a Klan member would do. I'm so mad that these people call me a Klan member now, just because I was talking, because I have these hard conversations, and I'm not going around gossiping about people and being cruel and playing the game like a lot of politicians do. I'm not doing that. So they try to destroy you in the way they can, and that's one of the ways. And it gets in the way of us having honest conversations. What do you think about it?
Well, I'll just say, you know, when I saw it, I felt kind of hurt and angry because that could have been me, you know, or my mother or my father that happened to. So I felt upset. I mean, I was upset, humiliated, you know. I just felt that it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
To do that to human being, you know. I mean, because he was already on the ground. Why suffocate him? Man, despite his criminal record, that man was somebody's son, father, uncle. That man had had a daughter. So, and taken from his family is just wrong, you know. So it's probably everything about you read about him. Take his life is not right, you know. That, you know, so that was totally unjust to do that, you know. See a man suffer like that, you know. That's just wrong, because that could have been me, and I was upset that had a. And plus, being filmed, I should have never been filmed, you know. You know, that it was totally, you know, that's just not something that's natural. And take his life like that, you know, was really hurtful, because it made me thinking too, I'm black, you know, or if a couple tries to hurt me, kill me, you know. I mean, that's somebody's son. That's he was somebody's father, you know. Someone's, he was a man.
Yeah.
So, and that wasn't right at all.
There are cases that I think if you wanted to make them a cause celeb, there are cases that I think of that come to mind before George Floyd. George Floyd, that was terrible, right? But with the complexity of that case and of that man himself, it complicates things. But there was a man in Minnesota who was at a traffic stop, and his girlfriend started doing Facebook Live video of the traffic stop, and I guess he had a legal gun on him, but because he started talking about it,
Mhm.
like I have a gun on me or something. I think in that case, it looks like the police officer panicked. So that might have been some training issues, or maybe because the man was talking about a gun and didn't have his hands up on the steering wheel as he was doing so, that other officer panicked. And that one was sad because that guy was, there wasn't anything complex in his background. He was like he was a cafeteria, he was a cook at a school, and the kids, he was really popular and the kids loved him. And he was just a regular nice guy. There weren't any concerns about drugs or anything. The gun was legal, everything. And another case about, I think this was in Dallas, where the woman, she was a police officer herself. She she was in her apartment, and she went in the wrong door, and thought she was in her own apartment, and shot this guy who was just sitting in his own apartment. And she thought that there was some intruder in her apartment. I mean, I think she was convicted because that just makes no
Mhm.
sense. That's just, that whole thing was another guy, like his story in his life, he's just a rake doing his best. Those are the stories really stick with that. And now West, the guy who's running for governor, wife,
Mhm. Catherine, you there? You okay?
hi again. This keeps happening. I suppose we only have a few more minutes, but what happened with the guy running for governor in Texas, his wife was recently arrested for suspected DUI with her grandchild in the car. And yeah, they're insisting that she was not drunk, and her blood alcohol level tested at 0, I'm hearing. So there's a lot to look at with that situation.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about. But you see, maybe she had some very specific medical condition that looks the same as being intoxicated. I don't know. That would be my question if I was, investigating that. And if not, then yeah, I have a lot more questions.
Mhm.
But BLM, I worry about them because they have Marxist roots, and you talk about that, and people think you're exaggerating. But the founders themselves say that they're trained Marxists. So when people tell you who they are, you should believe them.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
say.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So how can we find you on social media if we want to reach out to you?
Well, I'm probably the same way you did. I think you just found me on Facebook. Um, that's easy.
Okay.
You can also write to me at the State House. I have State House Media. Let me think. I'm afraid I'm gonna get it's every state email address is the same, and mine is just kpo@nh.ledge.gov. I think that's it. Yeah, there's always a few other little things on there, but you can find me on the State House website. So it's the New Hampshire General Court website. You can find me there, and then just write me there, or you can find me on social media as you have on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter as K Prudhomme O'Brien. You can find me there as well.
Okay, and are you going to be? And are you going to be in Boston anytime soon? So I actually live in Boston though. So if you're in Boston, we can definitely meet. You know.
What neighborhood do you live in? What part?
Roxbury.
Roxbury. Okay. Roxbury's like far to me because I live on the north side. So I never even went to places like Stoughton. You know, I've never even been those places because Weymouth, like the other side of the world almost. But I used to go to that area, Roxbury area, when I was teaching immigrants, you know, reading. I used to take the train. It would take me forever. I would go and get on at Sullivan Square, and it would just take me like an hour and a half to get there sometimes. I should have driven. That would be nice. Yeah, you send me an email. I'm not sure when I'll be in Boston next, but yeah, maybe soon. Maybe soon. I go there sometimes for like a medical appointment or something like that, like to see a specialist every once in a great while. That's about it.
Okay, because I also grew up in Malden, so yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. I went to the vocational high school called Northeast Regional, and Malden kids went there. You didn't go there, did you? That would be amazing.
I went to Malden High School.
Malden High, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, so I had friends from Malden and go see them and everything, which was also tough because the train and the bus would take us a really long time. The school was so spread out.
Yeah.
Just had to visit friends.
Definitely, you know, this is so great getting to meet you. And if you send me the release form, have the interview yet on WBCA, you know, did you get the form I sent you, the release form? I can send this to you again, the release form, so we can have it.
You have to get? Oh yeah, you have to. All right, I'll fill that out.
Okay,
send that back to you,
okay,
and then you'll be able to put this on. So I'm going to be on television in Roxbury.
I'm in Boston, yeah, next week, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Hi, everybody in Roxbury.
Yeah, so definitely. And this is wonderful getting to be and talk to you. I've learned so much from you, and we stay in touch, you know, and hope to see you in Boston. You know, we can meet you, come to my house for dinner, you know. So yeah, so.
Oh, thank you. I went to Bunker Hill Community College for 2 years also.
Really?
So a little bit of Boston connection there, of course. Yeah, I would take the train in and go south a little bit and go to Bunker Hill. And I also was a reading tutor in Boston Public Schools for a little bit at an elementary school in Charlestown. That's one of the classes I was taking there at Bunker Hill. And I was in the band at Bunker Hill, and I was in the chess club. I was playing chess all the time. That was my big thing. And yeah, good times.
Oh yeah, I just graduated from Upstate Community College. My associate degree in liberal arts in May, so I'm a college graduate now. So yeah.
Oh, congratulations! Are you going to continue on?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Emerson College in January for my bachelor's degree in film media.
Okay, terrific.
So look forward to that.
Do you want to be behind the scenes or in?
Well, I actually want to be an actor. I'm in Boston Casting. I want to be an actor.
You do?
I also sing, you know, so I want to try and make some songs, you know. I want to try act, you know, and so I was work behind the scenes. But yeah, I definitely want to jump in the entertainment field, you know. So that is my
okay. Excellent. Good. Well, I hope that works out, and then I'll know you know, when. That would be nice. Thank you for having me on. This was interesting.
Absolutely. You know, hope to see you soon, you know, and if you send a phone to me, I can have it interview next week, okay?
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great
day.
Okay. Bye-bye.